Dear friends, I would like a minute of your attention, please. Who are we supposed to look at? Look at me or Andrei? I would like to start the session, and I'm certain you read the title of the session, which is Business Climate in the Modern World, and you are going to have the presentation of Sergei Anatolyevich Petrov. I don't know what does it mean for business environment, but even for us, for business which is not much profitable, environment does not help. I mean, the environment organized by the state. So I don't quite know how we will maintain our business. The other thing I don't quite understand, I would like to share with you, which is not very much the case. We have a lot of educated people in the country. We have also many intellectuals and very knowledgeable people. We have successful people too, but we have very few true human beings. So in my age, you come to realize that to evolve as a true human being is the only thing or business which really matters with every one of us, since life is going to pose difficulties all the time, but it's also an opportunity to succeed in that. But as Maradashvili used to say, you have always have your slot, and it is waiting for you, it's empty for you, and that's exactly the position you can make a man, a true human being. That's my introduction to the business community. And that's my appeal to Sergei Petrov, who is going to be the presenter. Sergei is always going to correct me, and as an intellectual, it will be quite polite. It's true, because in the agenda, the topic is entitled in the wrong way. And the presenter tells me right now that his topic is entitled, What is more important, your homeland or the truth? That's exactly the topic our presenter would like to entertain. Okay, so I'll try to be quite brief in my introduction. I'd like to outline my main bullets. It's not a traditional lecture that are delivered by people with some ideals. But I don't want to waste your time. For me, it's always some movement, some progress for values which I understand. And otherwise, I don't assume the responsibility of speaking before you, since we have much more knowledgeable people who would be much better on many things. So the combination of practice and theory, that's actually my domain. And when I decided that my topic will be what is more important, homeland or truth, I think first Mr. Chandaev put it forward. And for us, it's even more important because we are receiving very much controversial information nowadays concerning conflict in Ukraine and on many other issues. We can see a split on the level of families, on the level of friends. We are receiving same information, but some people believe in one group of facts, others in another group of facts, and we cannot help it. And if you are free tonight, you'll have a lot of opportunities to maintain a very heated dispute. But let's turn to practical things. And the very phrase, what is more important, homeland or the truth, is understandable only for the Russians. When I was interviewing an Austrian who was seeking for employment, I asked that question to her, and he looked at me as at an idiot and told me to ask Russians that questions. For her, that problem was not relevant, and I realized that it's exactly the typical Russian question, which dates back to the ancient times. For instance, the Russian parliament abolishes the court of juries because it's not customary in the Caucasus. And in the Caucasus, if somebody's nephew is being convicted of murder, other people cannot understand that, and judges and jury refuse to vote for punishment, and it leads to the abolishment of some articles in the criminal code. And say Moscow is badly in need of the courts of juries, as well as many other cities, since otherwise our law enforcement system is not a court of arbitration. It's not the competition courts. It's part of our law enforcement machine. So, homeland or truth? Let's look at that as a business environment. For me, it's always the question of if I want to lie or tell the truth. According to some polls, more than half of the Russians agree that if it is in the interest of the countries, you can afford lying. And in some information programs on TV, many people see those facts, and others try to justify those lies. And it brings to us a question how we can live up with that, and how we can deal with hatred, because many people are really ready to go to war now, but we don't know when to stop, and when we shall stop in order not to be cheated about our pensions, about our budgets. I worked for the budget committee of the Russian parliament, and for the past 7 or 8 years, I think today 22% of all the budget is classified articles, because MPs believe that people are not to be informed about that, although a budget is made up of your taxes, and so you have a right to demand those articles items are transparent. But when it comes to threats and dangers of the state, there is always a justification to classify some items. And if the lie is supported by an intention to get rid of lying, well, and the registration of nominees for the Moscow State Duma is about to be completed now. And you remember recent latest election showed that Navalny was the runner-up in the elections, but none of his representatives now are registered. I understand what happens behind the scenes, and it's not a decent competition. It's decided on higher levels. So that those lies begin reproducing more lies, and then I'm afraid it can bring us to the USSR light version, double thinking or something. But in the Soviet Union it was quite common. When I was 13, it first struck me. And I still remember that, and I looked around and asked my father, because I was struck that in some instances people said one things, in other instances they said entirely different things. And the father told me, just shut up, think of how you graduate from your school. And I thought that if 250 million people thought it was okay, then sometimes I can afford lying. It was in Orenburg, the city of Orenburg, and the head of the party committee there was Mr. Kovalenko, who was awarded the top Soviet award 2 times. And at some meeting, we pushed him very hard on explaining to us how it was possible. And that head of the party committee in Orenburg, who in public was very much patriotic, saying that in the territory of the region could accommodate a number of European countries. But he looked at us and said, "You are young people, and live and try to correct the situation." But we ended up in a bad shape. The KGB got us into custody, and I asked the investigator, the coroner, what he thought of that. I was in the military then. I was a major, and that general from the secret police said, "Do you really want to live like they live in America?" I said, "Why not?" And the people could do that quite in the same fashion. Well, the general said, "I will take you to the nearest factory, and I will tell the workers that that guy want to live how they want and how they live in America, and you'll be torn up into pieces." And he was right. He told me, just try to make the party career, try to make a secretary, and be rude to the people, because people would like you to be like that. But I wondered what was that, and how could people want it. But the General Danko was very convincing. And on the third day of interrogation, I was really at a loss. I tried to figure out how I could get out of that. And I asked the general what he thought about that, and I said that we had not done anything wrong. We just wanted people to tell the truth. And the general said that you were not kept pretty much busy in your service. And that was a very simple idea, the one that the military and the secret police entertained. And if people acted like slaves, then the policy pursued by the authorities should be adequate to that. And they thought they could really disregard our rights to the extent we can allow them to do so. And the freedom that is elevated from the top cannot last for a long time. And every day we were flooded with information by television or radio. Teachers taught the same at school, and after all elections are rigged, were rigged, and you can always find a lot of justifications. I was telling them I come with my mandate. I'm an authority, and you are not responding to my requests. And I was answered that we will follow the due procedure, and you will be answered. So the authorities were not vulnerable. So sometimes I think lying can benefit us when it's about the external threat, but when it comes to internal threats and internal affairs, lying to that effect was not productive, and that ruined our economy. And you can see what mess we are living in. And we are still very far from progress. And speaking of international affairs, I always come to the European Assembly. I'm a member of the European Parliament, and what we hear then, when you try to interpret for Russian MPs, and our Russian MPs are quite simple. Most commonly, they do not speak foreign languages, and in Strasbourg, our Russian diplomats meet those MPs and take them on the bus and bring to the venues. And I asked those diplomats, do you have to stop all your business and just make good treatment to those MPs? And that was not the case with our counterparts from, say, Denmark and The member of the European Parliament from Denmark told me that they even fly economy class. And I saw that our members of parliament, both Russian and the European Parliament, had their past experiences, and certainly it was their ways, and our people cannot think critically. They were not taught that at school, so that a source can be assessed, and source can be wrong, and if the source is wrong, you should not replicate that information. And when our young man graduates as a journalist, they realize, they understand that you cannot refer to wrong sources, but they understand that that's what the people want to hear. I have my news agency in Orenburg, and I asked people working there, can you afford giving 2 points of opinion to the people and stay profitable? Arkady Pronin, the head of the agency, said, okay, but after some time he thought that, he told me that those were quite conflicting things, because when you take an interview and if somebody says the truth, which cannot be translated to the people, journalists just resign, and they cannot afford, because they cannot understand what is the opinion which is to be translated to the people, and that's quite a serious problem for regional TV channels and nationwide. And Mr. Gusinski once told me that CEO was cheating on me because he was trying to establish good relations with the governor. But the information that creates the feeling of comfort with us produces some remission, and the problem only multiplies. I can refer to an example from business. I saw a company that was pursuing a very reckless policy. I'm not in business now, so that example dates back to some years before. So I was quite aware of all the developments. And people asked what was wrong with them, where they were the best. But I told them that your competitors worked better. And any information on the competitors that they were bad, that they are corrupt, is most welcome. The only other type of information that tells that competitors do better is rejected. And I noticed that for business it was harmful too. A lie is always harmful from my perspective. It's my conviction. And I think you all agree that it's harmful for business, but for the state sometimes it's beneficial. We cannot say that we did something wrong, that we shut down something. My colleagues asked for evidence, and I asked in my turn to refer to a single fact when you received and you acknowledged any evidence. I remember we shot down some drone of Georgia, and he saw the drone make a footage of a fighter approaching that drone. And a colleague of mine in the parliament said that it was all rigged, and so it proved that the people do not believe anything if it runs counter to their convictions. Let's look into two aspects. Mobilization sometimes can be good, can be beneficial, but suppose we agree that we committed something wrong, and we should really investigate what we did wrong. What is at risk? We just made an effort, and if we were wrong in our assessment of competitors, it means that the company can become bankrupt. In politics, it's somewhat different, and in politics, you seem to be have to be mobilized all the time. But you understand, the country is strong when the economy is strong, and when people stop lying. But it looks like politicians think that it's better to lie and to get some advantages for a very short period of time. And in the Ukrainian conflict, looks like 87 senators voted in favor of war without asking any questions to foreign minister or defense minister. They didn't try to verify all the facts they were given. You can understand what risk is imposed on us if some senator goes nuts and announces a war against Xinjiang, province of China or something. So we don't have that security mechanism, the checks and balances that are established in a good country. Because we really need some safeguards, because people are weak mentally sometimes, and we should really have some machinery that may stop any wrongdoing. And for that end, we need to have the parliament. But in our parliament, most of the MPs are appointed and not elected, so we are sitting on a gunpowder keg. So, revisiting that Strasbourg situation, there was the debate when the Russians were strong, telling that it could not be the truth, and the opposition, the Europeans, were saying that it was. So we always have our own position, and I began asking the Europeans why they were so confident about their position. And you can judge on your own. Mostly it concerns such aspects that Americans and Europeans would think that it's the dictator to blame who has been sitting on top for 10 or 15 years. For them, it's just a fact. In our case, it's different. Say, Libya, under Gaddafi, living standards were good, and why there was a need to overthrow Gaddafi. But it means that every people have their own truth. And alternates every 4 years, say, Denis, you are Denis, you will be replaced, and if so, if successor will be bad, he can come back in 4 years. And for that end, Denis can be sure that no dictator will rig the election polls. In Orenburg, in my city, money is donated to arrange funerals. But on top, problems are quite different, and it's really the situation which is quite dangerous. If we, as public, we have no control over the authorities and leadership. So the question of truth or lie is quite important, and if somebody lies in the election commission, they have no right to teach us how to act and what is wrong, what is right. And so for Russians, it's the ultimate problem, and we really need to stop lying on every level. And you may claim that in this case we will always be blamed for all events like the ones we're having now. But it can be overcome, it can be surpassed, because the moment you start lying, our institution began deteriorating quite fast, and the lie was total. And when everybody lies, you should think that it's quite normal. But those examples, illustrations they refer may not be accurate all the time. They can refer to different things, and a good newspaper will never publish unverified information, because the reputation is at risk. In our case, the notion of reputation is not that important, and so if you are successful, if you cheated somebody or if you assassinated somebody, but you are not put to justice, it's okay. And people think that if you have a high position, you are always right, and that makes us different from other nations which believe that if you lie, if the president lies, and president lied, the U.S. president lied about the sexual harassment before the grand jury, and people began thinking if he had lied one time, how many times he could lie after that, and that's about the powder in the test tube that General Powell, or Secretary Powell, was showing before this Security Council. And that was a case, that was a lie, but it was investigated, and they found out that the powder was a true chemical agent that was fabricated by some Iraqi opponents of Saddam Hussein. So when U.S. television announces something, or when during the war, World War II, President Roosevelt visited an aircraft-making factory, and it was not reported because there was some secrecy about that, and the American society was indignant with that. In our case, Russians do not pay much attention to the information, but they are very much curious about various rumors of various levels of authority. In Orenburg, in my city, there are 37 nominees or runner-up of the governor's elections, and campaigns are conducted in the same fashion. So I'm afraid elections will be again without true elections, and the governor will be kind of appointed, and that's a lie which is transparent, but not all the people see it. No, people, if you have not seen an orange, you cannot order it at a restaurant. So for them, it's not mandatory to tell the truth. Okay, as a result, I'm going to leave more time for Q&A. And I think it was Russell who used to say that there was a lot of shortcomings with democracy, and the worst thing was that fools can vote for a fool. And Russell said, yes, okay, but under dictatorship, those fools are not elected, they rule, and that's much more dangerous. So thank you for your attention, and let's switch to Q&A.
We have an hour. Anna Uryadova from Yaroslavl. Black and white, truth and false. How about the evasive, elusive ways when people tend not to answer the questions? How come why that the people in the government, in the establishment, elude the questions? Well, I think that it's clear. If somebody does evades an answer, means that he or she does not trust you enough. Do you believe you know what would happen to that man if he or she says the truth? And will you go to the court? What do you want? Then at least don't demand from him to get the truth. Anybody willing to say the truth? Oleg Karelin from Krasnoyarsk. The State Duma is considering a draft law about public-private partnership. Do you believe that this law, if adopted, will help and facilitate the communication between the society and the government? Well, my experience tells me that it's quite negative on the private-public partnership. My colleagues have explained to me a number of times. I just have recently had a conversation with a state partner. So where are you? How do you make money? Well, we're building a glass works in the Caucasus. And so 80 to 20%, so we made some money. And when you talk to, can you imagine that you talk to a president and they say, what do you do? We'll give the hectares of land, we'll stifle the competitors. No, that's not that. We need the competitors for business. And then it's like a blind man talking to a deaf man. This is more about the wardens who have become businessmen. They need at least to get up at 7 in the morning. I don't think they would ever be able to get up at 7 and go to work at 8. There may be some successful projects somewhere, but usually the people who tell me about the successful projects do not seem to be trustworthy. I do not think that the state must be there in any kind of partnership, especially in a country inflicted by corruption. So I do not readily believe in the success of the public-private partnership here, as any business project is a risk. There is no business without risk, and once somebody enters this equation by removing the risk, like Sberbank, how will Sberbank take a condition? Has anybody ever played card games without money? How interesting it is. It is not interesting. In this particular case, some people might be interested because some play a zero-sum game, but then of course such business ventures, if we may call them business ventures, stifle the economy. Alexander Chernov from Bryansk. I have a professional interest. Especially because I live in a borderline region. We talk to the Russians and the Ukrainians, and I have an impression, I'm not sure if you can support my opinion, that neither our compatriots nor the Ukrainians are not interested in listening and hearing the truth. Everybody seems to be comfortable with propaganda, 100% propaganda. I often have a correspondence with the Ukrainians, and it is like talking to like a propaganda-based rhetoric. We will kick you out of Donbass, and then we'll come to Crimea, and then we'll come to Krasnodar and Rostov. So the question really is, do both parties need the truth? And secondly, how often are you truthful to your voters? Well, for Churchill has said that it is sufficient to start hating the democracy having talked to your constituents. Are there many people who have been here 2 years ago? Because I remember quoting about 6 or 7 years ago my voters or my constituents. How can we live there? 5,500 pension and 2.8 thousand rubles for the communal services. How can we live for that money? And I tell them, all right, we'll increase now. How can I live now? And I say, all right, let me conduct an experiment. Well, my dear ladies, you know, the Minister of Defense asks for 3 new submarines. So I have a choice as to what to vote. No, you have to have both. No, I'm sorry, you have to vote either for the submarines or for your pensions. The old ladies consider it for about 10 minutes, and they choose the submarines because so they live for about 1,800 rubles a month minus the communal services for about 100 euros a month. And so these old ladies demand the truth. So what kind of truth would they want? You know, the most important problem is the government and not the foreign foes. Will they understand me? Do you think that they will vote for me again? So I should either be silent or give it to a communist or some other. No, you're saying that yes, you must tell them. But what do you mean, deceive? Yeah, because if you see that you're dealing with a person who is quite inadequate, you have to raise him the stairs, because the American grannies will say that the government is the major foe. You have to be very wary, and we will vote from here. You do not understand it here, and the old ladies in Orenburg, they won't talk to you if you tell them that. So I will have a choice. To tell them the truth and to be in minority. And frankly speaking, I do tell them the truth, but I tell them in a more understandable language. And I tell them that the Paul Polish has done this and that, and we can't stop him. And this is always a question which is very difficult in such societies. The Kremlin is using the same ideology. Why should we tell them the truth if they're not going to vote for us? They will vote for Zhirinovsky. And this is indeed, to me, a collision. I am solving this problem in the following way. I think that you must tell the truth. But you have to tell them that you have to make a step towards this. Why? Because when you elect Mr. Zhirinovsky or whoever on the so-called honest game, maybe they will vote for a Nazi or for a communist. That may be bad, but in 4 years, this Nazi or a communist will try to stay in power, even as Mr. Putin would do. But then in 4 years, we have to tell them go away. Now, so the fair play is this, the fair play, and when because only through mistakes the society grows. If you read the history of the French Revolution, 3 times France really got rid of the Bourbons, and they were back every time. So every country has to go through this. So you start with the vanguard, you start with some movement. This does not mean that the people will be prepared for this the next day. There will be another move, and the people have to get used to it. So if, say, Mr. Zhirinovsky had been elected at least once as president, I think that his party would have been out of parliament during the next elections. But because he has never been a president, because nobody even wants to think of how he would govern this country, then, of course, this about 6 to 7 million people vote for his party. So what do I say? I'm telling you know, the ladies that I'm not a leftist, but I think that you may be well off, more well off, if I represent your interests. They listen to me, of course. Then there is I have a person from my party committee, and they're always very ready. They're a lot more emotional, and they only get those or listen to those facts that are of greater interest to them on this regional level. Oh yes, talking of the Ukraine, I'm sorry. Talking of the Ukraine, this was not even a question, but rather a comment that everybody prefers to rely on propaganda. Yes, indeed, propaganda. How justified it is, or we should be saying that we are in dire straits and should the truth be seeping through both in Russia and in Ukraine, because we're in both Ukraine and Russia are in a difficult situation. Well, let us put aside the invectives. They are moving towards the EU. They may get in a situation like Poland or the situation like Bulgaria in 10 years, and all we can do is to wish them success. We're moving back to the USSR. The vector is, I think, wrong. I think that the fact that over the past 5 years all institutions have degraded, there is no parliament, there are no containing factors, the courts are degrading, the bureaucracy is gaining so insolent that it is, and once so I think that the society does not feel that we are on equal footing. I think that they're moving in the right direction anyway, and everybody makes a choice for himself or herself. It's like the dragon film, as to what you see in the skies. I am telling people that very honestly that the Crimean will be a very, very hefty fine, a very expensive bill, but most of my deputies are saying that sanctions are for a time and Crimea is forever. But here we have controversies, of course. All right, let's go further. Timur Uzhakhov. I represent the Caucasian Republic, where the jury could not actually was a failure. The jury in the judiciary did not get implemented. In Ingushetia and the East Caucasian republics, the jury does not seem to prevail, because these are small societies and people know each other. They live in close communities, and there's a very high level of religious institutions. And when there's a situation of conflict, people prefer to go to the Sharia court on the level of muftis, which coexist with the secular court. How do you explain to, say, a McDonald's that they have to go to the Sharia law? What do you do? No. This is only about to those who want to go to the Sharia law. I see. So if there is no consensus, then of course they have to go to the secular court. And you have to realize that the judges are also from the local communities, and they're being influenced. With respect to my question, there is such a notion of a lie said or lies for salvation. Do you believe in such a thing as a lie for salvation? I remember having a conversation with one spin doctor. Just look at it, how this is viewed by the civilized governments and civilized countries. because that it may be somewhere. I'm more inclined to say that my mother is 86, and people work with her, and they steal something from her. I go to the police. And I tell her, all right, they're busy. You can't call the police. But no. What I meant I'm talking about the Ukraine. You're a politician entrusted with finding a consensus. You go to the Ukraine. You talk to Mr. Poroshenko. You tell them, Mr. Putin has a respect for you. He has a great respect for the Ukraine. He wants to have a certain cooperation with you, and then you come to Mr. Putin and say that Mr. Poroshenko has a high esteem and respect for you. Do you believe that such lies can be justified? No, this is not lie. This is a diplomatic language. Well, this is a diplomacy. You know, polite people don't start with muzzling each other. Or do you believe that? Well, no. People still speak in somewhat. Because if you want to discuss with somebody, you don't start by saying, "Then why did you come here dressed so unbecomingly?" So you have to start with a hello. You have to start with a good morning. You know, good morning may itself be a lie. You know. So indeed, there is a diplomatic language. People start to look for some details and minor things, and go and look, take a look how people change their governments every 4 to 5 years, and they will usually be told. Yes, indeed, there are situations when one might say a lie, but these things must not be an obstruction to the process per se. They must not annihilate the procedures. You know, the dogs don't bark when they're not taught to start barking when somebody passes by. Marina from Khabarovsk. I have a question. What is, in your view, the level of trust of the population to the State Duma deputies or the MPs? Well, I think that the level of trust is usually measured by the sociological services. I think it is now 7 to 12%. It is extremely low. It is very low. I'm not even looking at these ratings because, frankly, I do not see that this parliament. I do not regard this as parliament. No, people stand in the lines. Why do you need to talk? I need to talk. Why are you coming here to talk? Is this a Duma? And this is indeed one of the great problems that we have. The falsifyings, the machinations, the entry of one party, and indeed the result of a one-party system which has evolved. That's I call this rather. Of course, we're not as close to the Supreme Soviet of. The Soviet of People's Deputies, who convened twice a year, but it appears that we're moving in the same way. I don't think that our Duma will be in any way of interest. We are passing about 500 laws. The U.S. Congress passed 53 laws for the past 4 years, and the reference norms do not exist in the U.S. People must love each other, and the government will decide how people should love each other, or the ministry will decide on this. So this tells us that the easiness and the low quality of the laws and the lawmaking indeed leads to a situation of unhealthy business climate and political climate. This is the result of the lie. Ivan Vlasov from Kaliningrad. 1 year ago, I was a representative of a forum, and there were people from different camps, the opposition, and from Kaliningrad, and a very successful businessman and a senator now. And he was very eloquent. He was asked a question: how did you vote on the Dima Yakovlev law? And he looked at us and said, I voted for this law, but you do not know what was on the balance on the other side. Did you ever have to vote for the laws which are contradictory to your beliefs? Yes. How does a parliament function? When the first, second, and third Duma, this was still a place for discussions. Then we worked. We worked until late at night. Mr. Gaidar, Mr. Zhukov. Now we don't even know who sit in these committees. People sit there. There are no discussions. There is no subject for discussion. There is no need to talk. So sometimes people just don't go and visit these sessions. But we always have our cards, and there is one person for 7 to 8, and he knows that the faction has decided to vote for a specific law. And they're given the committees. So that person sits and listens. And you're being told that, but I'm here for 7 or 8 people. We have a list, we have a recommendation. So when the parliament works in such a regime, you can go to the sessions and the parliamentary hearings, you can talk to the ministers, you can talk to the deputies, you can talk to the experts, and indeed the committees. And the plenary sessions don't have any discussion, because it is literally not relevant to discuss or consider such things at the plenary sessions. So, if any work is done in this parliament, and the latest fashion is that the laws are being adopted just upon reading them in the plenary session. And if you say are away from the parliament, from the session, I'm not talking about the laws, the kind of Mr. Yakovlev, Dima Yakovlev, but I think that the Senate is not a Senate and the Parliament is not a Parliament. The same pertains to Crimea. The terrible pressure, and every person makes a decision for himself or herself. Every person, the risks are usually quite high, and it is not even possible to to tell you about these risks. Businesses are not attacked up front, but you can see how, say, Yukos was annihilated, or Mr. Gutkov's business was obliterated, and so people think twice before they vote against. So, unless there is a support on the part of the society, and unless there is a true parliament, there's hardly this is indeed senseless rhetoric. How can we talk about this particular Duma? And I think that the senators are just as much as hostages as the Duma deputies. We are responsible for not feeling this support. The MPs from other countries tell me that if we do not comply with the mandate, we do not comply with our constituents, they will really come and dismantle the whole place. How many of you are parts of associations? You are activists, but you have to understand that a middle European, an average European, might well be a member of far or more societies. Mr. Petrov was among 4 deputies who voted against the Dima Yakovlev law, just as a matter of reference. Thanks. Thank you for your support. Mr. Yumachikov.
Nikolai Yumachikov from Tyumeny. I listened to you very attentively, and you said that Parliament is not very much responsible now, and you do not visit, and several persons may vote for a faction. So why do you sit there? What constructive mechanisms of influence on policy you see now? The parliament is not static, it is moving, and still there is a chance at the level of committees to take necessary laws for business. Actually, my first law was about second-hand cars. It was important for business in general. I visited Deputy Minister, and he said, I'm responsible for the budget, and I don't really need it. And everybody in the government is responsible for his own budget, for instance. And if it's useful in general, my law, it's not convincing. But after all, it was approved. And then people said, these automobile or car people, they promote their own interests. And in case of something else, I have to ask my colleagues to initiate something. And, well, actually, I'm pretty active in promoting the car laws. Because in the past, for instance, technical inspection was done by 70% for bribes. And the government is not very much interested usually. It's not the risks of losing their power. It's just some technical issue like technical inspection or second-hand cars. Such laws may be put forward, yet being in the parliament. And again, you should not necessarily to be there personally just to discuss it. You may work in the governments. It's easier than convincing people with the buttons or to press. So that's how the institutions degrade, and it's very difficult for them to be restored. So this is a very difficult problem, because people who are capable of discussing things, they're disappearing now. Now people know how to lobby. I'm from Krasnoyarsk, Anton. Your presentation is named What's More Important, the Motherland or the Truth? Well, truth management is more or less possible. What about our motherland in this context? Yeah, well, that's a good question. Anton, I like your questions very much. With this kind of people, you may build a good parliament. All right. The notion of motherland for a Russian is what? Something very important. You have to give up everything for your motherland. You have to sacrifice everything. But read the Apology of a Madman written by Chadaev. He writes, yes, you like your motherland in a different way, like Chukcha likes his snow, although he is sick of his snow. An Englishman likes his motherland in a different way because they have institutions, they have a chance to be free. So it's different motherland, different love, and so on. And he says, I cannot love my country on my knees. And he wrote about the Tsarist Russia. And in his case, the notion of motherland and the notion of Mr. Dubelt or Mr. Benkendorf at that time were different. Same as you and me and representative of law enforcers, they have different notion. In their case, it's more stately notion, acquiring some new territory and so on. And this was our history. That's the way the country was built. And actually, people are children of their parents. And when you grow up and you get socialized, you acquire certain features. And you say that I'll do everything for my motherland. And an American says, what kind of motherland? You mean this administration? I don't think I have to vote for this administration. Well, this is about institutes, and if you don't have institutes, it's hard to find this difference. But it's very interesting for Russians. For people in other countries of the world, it's not so important because they do not see administration and the motherland as the same things. Irakli Atenji from Georgia. My question. Putin's rating after the war in Georgia was high, 85% after the Crimea thing. So maybe this rating is the answer to the question of what is more important, the truth or the motherland. You know, Mubarak had a very high rating just one day before he was thrown away. Or Ceausescu, for that matter, was about 100% before, just the day before he was shot down. He was killed. So rating without freedom of press is a very dubious thing. It is high, no doubt. You ask your questions or ask your friends, and everybody loves him, yep. But if you are responsible for everything as a president, for the way your water runs and so on, you have to understand that you will be responsible for everything, and your rating may fall down immediately when it is clear that something goes wrong. In '93, I remember being in London. There was a certain party, and there were two London diplomats, and there was our military attaché. So they say, why did he come to us? In the past, we were enemies. Now we are friends. Why you criticize us? And they said, Mr. Petrov, explain to us what kind of country you live in. Yesterday, all your country were enemies, and now all your country is our friends. So you either hypocritical or cynical yesterday or today. And our attaché just says, we are friends now, and they don't believe into this kind of things. You cannot happen overnight. and it really means that something is wrong with our press or with our freedom. In time of Iraqi war, Bush's rating was pretty high, but that's for a short period of time. I think it's an intermediate moment now for our authoritarian authorities. And of course, you say that without any shot we have acquired something, let us acquire something else, which is very dangerous, because this may end sooner or later in a sad way. Ekaterina Fedorova, Saratov, thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of words to say. A politician who comes here makes a test. For instance, two soccer teams play, Russia and some other country. They play soccer. And you see that others make a goal, and this goal was hit from offside. And you can say to the referee about it, or you cannot say. And another situation, the same thing happens with opponents. And again, so in what way you will tell the truth? In the case of your own motherland or in case of your the other country? Murat Mamardashvili said that you cannot demand from somebody to become a man under inhuman conditions. So how can you ask people to be strong? You can tolerate a lot, and people are ready to fight, but they may be hit in the nose. In business, well, I'm 23 years old, and I know that people of my age try to build a business, and this business is quite successful. It's honest, efficient, and competitive. And it seems to me that we are not afraid because we were not hit in the nose so far, because the generation of the 90s, it is more cautious. It doesn't want to risk, because these people understand that if they go against the authorities, they may be robbed of their business, or they may be thrown to jail. Yes, okay, Katya, thanks very much. Business and political system would be under such circumstances for a long time, because people ask, what shall we do? Katya says that people who were not hit yet in the nose, they are ready. And some skeptics say, let us wait before you were hit in the nose, and then you will become the same as the generation of the 90s. In the Eastern Europe, there is a certain illustration, especially when they join the Europe. They are asked to find someone who hit them by the nose, what people took wrong decisions, and when some lawyer said that we do not accept your candidature because you provided your paper in the wrong way. So you have to find such people and send them to jail, not because we are blood tasty, we want blood, but the thing is that people should know that that's the end of the story. If you do wrong, you go to jail, you are punished. And of course, people, you talk about, they don't know how people were punished, people who punished others. But as soon as such people are punished, as soon as our society is ready for it, and probably this will happen pretty soon after the economic crash, and it can be done. It can happen soon, I believe. Without this, there are so many hypocrites, and they'll tell you tomorrow if the communists win, they say, we are communists. We were secret communists. If somebody else wins, they would run in to sit pretty. to sit pretty because they cannot do anything. They know how to hit somebody in the nose. This is their natural capacity. They were born and they immediately were ready to hit their mother in the nose. These are sort of enforcers, and they enforce management now. Their best theoreticians are based on the police approach. I say, for instance, don't start cases without tax authorities, and they say, no, our investigators would find their way. But business runs away. Let it run away. But how can we live without business? We shall live with working class without business. That's what they say. And these people are quite literate. Some of them are doctors of science, and they accept laws. Stanislav Lazowski, St. Petersburg. Can you name some positive political trends in political system and in political culture of Russia? Modern, for instance, if not trends, but at least specificities, political culture, positive elements. What's so good in Russia nowadays? Is there any good in Russia? Now it's difficult to find, but some movement goes on. Some movement is there. I know in Mosgordumu we lost several candidates, Maria Gaidarin and someone else, but there were many young volunteers who worked with her and then acquired certain experience. And they saw that whatever you do, it may be thrown away, and the authorities help us. Actually, the authorities do much more to form their position than people like me. And I think this is positive, because in the end, they will, historically, they are doomed, and this is positive. And this is the movement, the defense front. If it is in Dnieper and Moscow, 600,000 vote in a different way. These people are not ready to keep mum, just to love their motherland with their just kneeling. Nadezhda Grishnova, Saratov. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Now I understand better what Anatoly Adamishin said. He said that if the society doesn't control the authorities control the society. So the first step for the society to make authorities is to have a demand for truth. Demand for truth is an evolutionary process, or there should be some upheavals in the world, in the country, inside the border of a certain state. Can it speed up the process so that the civil society has a large-scale demand for truth? Yes, you are also from Saratov. You have a demand for truth. Yes, of course, we may encourage you for this and that, but then you go back home and you see that nothing happens, and you return back to your mainstream, and then we have your former graduate, Mrs. Yarovaya. Gaidar made a market economy, and people played this game, and after a while they go to the street and say that we want the state of law, and your law, what you write, is not good. And we do not have an independent court, and that really means that we have no property. Property is the beginning of a real demand. If you read the economic history, you will see that the property is the cornerstone of everything. Well, some people will tell you that we live very well in Russia. But of course, if you answer like this, you do not hope, you do not see what happens, what may happen with the country without law, and without court. Budgetary situation is bad, economic situation is bad, and so far I don't see any chances for improvement. So at this particular stage, evolution is still there. There are 1,000 reasons for evolution, but I think market economy is the best approach. Now let us have a look at our economy. Up to 70% of all the state economy, if state economy is 100% like Sberbank, which is managed by the state, and nomenclature business of mayors' wives and so on. And these people, they live on different law. It's not market law. Among them, there is no evolution growth. And 30%, they live on regular laws. And unfortunately, many of these people move away. Mr. Garbatin is the deputy Vyacheslav Garbatin Kaluga, school graduate of 2010. Sergei, in Kaluga we have a special economic zone. Tell us the truth about the economic zones. Yes, you know the answer, you know my answer. I know from the experience that all our quasi-economic solutions come from weak economy. They say, let us make Skolkovo, and altogether, well, the resistance is very big. Well, I have my aunts, they're 80 now, and one of them was an entrepreneur, another one worked in the ministry, and I hear how they talk to each other. The entrepreneur aunt said, you see, you passed the law, and you cannot check their business for 2 laws. And the business lady said, well, leave us alone. Why should we be checked constantly? And as far as these economic zones are concerned, some abnormal economy is very painful and detrimental. It's detrimental. Special economic zone. And it's abnormal growth. Even if it grows, there should be people who take responsibility. People in the West were answering the question about economy. They tell you whether everything is available and what is the bank interest rate. In our case, you would answer in a different way. You should know certain people, and if you work in this zone, you return from this zone a different man, meaning your concepts get wrong. Like there was a Kaliningrad special zone. It spoils people. And in the end, there is still no result. Unfortunately, this is done for geopolitical ambitions. In Witt's reminiscences, he was a prime minister. He said that we lost the war only because I built railways in the wrong way. I was asked to build railways to the Far East, and it would be better to build a railway between Kursk and Nizhny Novgorod. The country would have been stronger. So normal economy should be normal, without any ism, without any specificities. As soon as we have, addition, for instance, sovereign democracy is not democracy. It should be just democracy. But in case of any new zone, there are many clerks who try to manage something, to control something, your project or my project, and it is done at your own expense. Kabardino-Balkaria colleague, Nikita Barankov from Kabardino-Balkaria. Politicians do not want to tell you the truth. All right. But pretty often they are far from people and they don't want to be closer to people. The bright example is Seliger. If Putin is interested to know what young people think, he would allow young people to ask questions, but the questions were prepared in advance. So that really means that nobody needs the truth. It's not politicians who do not want to. People do not want to listen to the truth. Sometimes people call us and say, we don't want your truth. For instance, let's take a history lesson. People say why we disrupted the country, the USSR. And I remember this time, and I was told that I was wrong because people love their country. But if you see the protocols of the Central Committee of the Party Secretariat, they didn't talk about the budget. And they talk about who was to be favored, who was to be supported, who was to be promoted. And I remember Gorbachev wrote that he went to Brezhnev and said I was to write a report that we buy grain in America. And Brezhnev said, no, don't write about this. And Gorbachev said, but everybody knows it. Yes, everybody knows it, but let them be quiet. When we die, let them talk. And Gorbachev wrote about it in his memoirs. And he was actually a member of Politburo at that time, and he went to talk about the issue to the General Secretary of the Communist Party, and he said, no, you shouldn't talk about it. So if you lie, once people say that we wouldn't elect you any longer, but this is not the case in our country. So of course you have to be honest in front of yourself in the first place. Yeah. Evgenia Shamis. My question is about the balance of truth. I work in the regions, and I know that in Russia we like to criticize a lot and say that everything is bad and everything is wrong. I work in the regions and see many adequate, normal business examples. I have my own business. And when you watch TV, the situation is the same. When you go abroad, there is a certain balance about other countries. Something is negative and something is positive. And in our country, everything is bad. And I understand that if it is so bad that there is no foundation, if we just talk about it this way, if you don't tell the world about some good things about us, but it happens, and then you don't understand how can you move on, because you have to believe in something. So how to balance it better? I made my own attempt. I offered the action 2 plus 1. If you feel that you are ready to criticize, you give one negative example, and then you give 2 positive examples. Well, about things which you like in your life, and people really like it. But some people said, people say that there are no such examples. We don't see such examples. We are accustomed to criticism. That's what people say. And we are educated and balanced people, and one example is enough. What about the social text? Did it touch you? No, in my case, well, I have certain questions, but I also understand, well, I see examples which allow me to do something, and I see these sources particularly in the regions. So it is 2 to 1, 2 good examples against 1 bad examples. 1 bad example. Yes, it's very good. Pretty often I hear it when people say, well, it's not that everything is bad. Let us turn this bad thing into a good thing. So if you tell the truth, then you have to tell the truth. If it is bad, then it is bad. There are good examples, no doubt. And you have to cite such examples. It's a question of free mass media. If these examples are purchased, then it's fine. But without free mass media, you don't need good examples. Because to make a stew, you need a cat in the first place. We need good mass media in the first place. And then we'll talk about this percentage. But when there is nothing, and as a matter of fact, there may appear these positive examples, but it will not be the truth. People don't write about good examples because there are none. That's it. So the first thing is political freedom, economic freedom, and then people will see what should they tell. For instance, if you are a pessimist, you are a pessimist. Another optimist, another person is an optimist, he would tell you many good examples. Okay, so we have consumed our time. Our time is up, really. No more questions. Sergei values this school very much and loves it, and that's very important for our school, because he helps it with his words and with his deeds, and let us thank him. Yeah, thank you. You have a very good company.
Полчаса перерыв.